friends, and welcome back. It's been a while. My name's Maria, and there are just so many things happening in the garden right now. I wanted to get out and give you a tour and show you what's behind me and what else is blooming in the gardens. So let's take a look. So as you can see, we finished the raised garden beds, and aren't they amazing? They are all planted out right now and just bursting. We put them here, maybe you might remember that I'd said I'm never gonna have big vegetable gardens again because we live on the north side of a mountain and everything just seems to get moldy and I have to fight with too many pests. But this part of the yard right here is our most southern facing part of the yard. And so I thought earlier this year, what if we put in some raised beds over here? This area gets an hour to an hour and a half more light every day than the spot over there where we used to have all the gardens. So we're giving it a try, and so far it's doing really well. So this first garden here is full of carrots. We've got some orange carrots and then a bunch of purple carrots, and they're doing really well. I've never had luck growing carrots before, but they're looking super big. And then I had put in some little bulb onions. They're all red onions, but in this first section, they're planted super close so that I can have green onions to pull, and I've already started pulling those. And then back here, interspersed with the kale and the lettuce, they're planted farther apart, so we'll have bulbing onions. And all of this will probably come out soon. This lettuce is starting to kind of form heads, and I think it's going to get bitter soon. You can see we're having some white fly problems too. I've never had white fly or aphid problems until this year, and I think it's possible that it was because the spring was so dry that they didn't get knocked off, and so we've been dealing with aphids and white flies. But the kale has been doing great. I've also not had great luck planting kale, especially in the spring. In the fall, it's okay because the bugs are mostly gone by then, but in the spring, they usually get eaten up by caterpillars, and I've seen one caterpillar so far. So I think they might be getting close to bolting because it's starting to get really hot, but we've had a great harvest. Every day we're eating from the gardens right now. This next bed over here, there are lots of ground cherries. And I know ground cherries they don't seem to be as popular a plant in the garden, and I don't know how I discovered them. But it was years ago. I planted one and thought, oh, a cherry from the ground, that sounds great. But they don't taste like cherries. They look like tomatillos. They're little tiny yellowish orange fruit inside of a papery husk. But the flavor is sweet and sour at the same time. And it reminds me, for some reason, because it doesn't really taste like it, but for some reason it reminds me of licking the cookie batter bowl when I was a kid, and that taste of sugar and butter and flour. That's what it reminds me of. So I love growing them. They're fantastic to freeze. You can throw them in pies. So I've got 10 of them this year. There's going to be a lot of ground cherries. And back behind the ground cherries, I have some frilly purple basil, which is beautiful, some parsley. And these 3 tomatoes are they're my cherry tomatoes. 2 of them are, I think it's Trongino, which is an orange cherry tomato. And this one right here is called the brown berry, which I had to get. I found it at a local plant sale, and they make red-brown cherry tomatoes. But many of you know that Hey Brown Berry is the podcast and Instagram name of my best friend Mars. So I had to see what those tomatoes would be like. And I've got some marigolds and basil interspersed just because they always help keep the bugs down. And then in this back bed, which is going nuts right now, this back bed has 2 different types of tomatoes. There's the Paul Robeson tomato, which I have heard some really good things about. It seems like every time I read about it, it's someone saying that it's their favorite tomato, and I've never grown this before. So my mom and I sat down in January, and last year she put in a couple little garden beds. She really wanted to try growing in her yard because a tree had been taken down next door and it opened up some light, so she was really excited about doing some gardening, which she hadn't been able to do in a long time because of the shade in her yard. So this spring she put in a bunch of raised beds, and she and I just both got so excited going through the garden catalogs or the seed catalogs and picking out things to grow. So we got tomato seeds and pepper seeds and stuff that we could grow together, which has been a lot of fun. Toby helps me in the garden whenever I ask. If I want to build something, if I need help weeding something, he will do it. But it's not his natural inclination to come out in the garden and be here. It's just not his thing. And neither of the kids really have that much of an interest either. Leaf loves being outside, but not necessarily doing the work of the garden. So it's mostly my thing. So having my mom get so excited about it, and she lives 30 minutes away, it seems like every day we're sending each other pictures or giving updates on what's going on in the garden, which has been a lot of fun. So I've got 3 of these Paul Robesons, and then behind me 3 Iron Lady. The Paul Robesons are indeterminate, as well as the cherry tomatoes, which basically means that their size has not been determined. They can grow as big as the season allows them. And so I'm pruning them down to 1 or 2 main stems to let them get tall and grow strong and put out good fruit, instead of letting them get super bushy, because with the humidity here in the summer, tomatoes tend to get diseases if you don't help keep the airflow going through them. The Iron Lady, which is another one I'm really excited about, is determinate, which means its size is predetermined. It will only grow so big, and so I'm letting that get a little bit bushier and still maintaining some airflow through it. Behind, I have Shintokawa cucumbers, they can grow really big, but they don't get bitter when they get big, which is really nice. And then peas. I have 3 different kinds. I have a shelling kind, a snow pea, and then a sweet snap pea. And those are growing really well. I haven't seen any flowers yet, but hopefully soon. I had some trouble earlier this year, actually very recently, with what looked like fungus. You can still see a little of it on the cucumbers, and the peppers not growing really well. Sorry, not the peppers, the green beans. You can still see here where it looks like they're a little bit curled, and I think it might have been that they were getting too much water. I've got this new system set up in here, which is drip irrigation. And I measured how much water it put out, and it seemed like a lot. But I've also got so many things growing in there. I was letting it run maybe 30 minutes in the morning, and I think they were still getting too much water. So I've not let it run in the last couple of days, and we've had some really warm weather. Not really warm for what we've had so far, because it's been a cool spring. It's gotten up into the 80s, and the nights have been in the 50s and 60s, and so that, I think, is helping the plants grow. A lot of these got out here a little early, especially the peppers. I've got 3 different types of peppers here, and they like being out when the nights are 50 degrees, and we just hit that. In fact, they survived through a couple of nights in the high 30s, which is not great for them. But I've got 3 different types of peppers. I've got the California Wonder, which is a nice, is it a red or orange? It's a nice sweet pepper. I've got the Ico peppers, which put out peppers that can be anywhere from yellow, orange, purple, red, all kinds of colors, which is really cool. And then I've got the Marconi peppers, which is a large red Italian sweet pepper that's kind of long. They're really good for stuffing if you want to stuff peppers. And over here and back behind the camera are more squash, a tromboncino squash, or like a trombone squash. I can't remember what it's called in Italian, but it's an Italian type squash that you can eat as a summer squash, or you can let it grow really big and have the skin harden and keep it as a winter squash, which I thought was very useful. And this right here is my sole zucchini, because I'm the only one who likes zucchini. And even when I planted 2 last year, we still ended up with too many for me to eat. So we're just going to grow 1. And look, baby zucchini. Oh, they're so cute. I'm trying really hard to make sure that everything is pruned well this year so that I don't have funguses and powdery mildews and all that stuff growing over everything. And with the gardens being where they are in the yard, hopefully it won't be as much of a problem. Though there is a maple tree directly above here that shades this first garden for a lot of the morning. It probably doesn't start getting sun till noon, but then the sun goes down back over that ridge, and this gets the sun the latest in the day. So hopefully it will be okay. I've got all these trellises set up so that the peas and the squash and zucchini and beans can all grow up over the trellises, and then make a really cool arch here by my cabin. And then over here on the other side of the trellis, I've got 2 Malabar spinach growing, and they're really pale right now. They look strong, they're really pale, and I'm thinking 2 things. One, see how much darker this leaf is. It should be even darker than that, and these are much lighter. One, I think, is because it's been chilly at night, and it really likes the sunshine and the heat, and it's underneath this maple tree, so it doesn't get light till later in the day, like direct sun. I put in a couple of medicinal hibiscus here, and some strawberries and calendula. This whole garden, I made this one last year, and it's really filling in nicely. There's a sumac right in the middle, and then back here we've got some archangelica. This is Dyer's coreopsis that overwintered and is looking really strong, so I'm excited about that one. Then I've got the scabiosa over here, which makes another really beautiful dye plant. On the other side of these 2 trellises, I put in butterfly pea flower in all of these, and then in these 2 we have more calendula. So man, this summer and into fall, things are really going to be hopping around here. My hollyhocks are looking good. I have to treat them again. They have a serious problem with rust, and part of it is, I think, because they don't get enough sunshine. I've been spraying them to try and treat them and trimming everything back, and it just keeps coming back. But it's humid and not raining right now, and so that's like perfect weather for encouraging that fungus. Here's a nice fennel. Hopefully we'll start seeing some baby swallowtails on there soon. And over here in the garden next to the raised beds, we've got some rhubarb. I didn't do anything with it this year. I just let it grow. Again, I'm the only one who likes the rhubarb. I have a house of picky eaters, so maybe I'll gather some a little later, but most of the rosemary did not make it over here. You see where I've taken some out, but the lavender, it's going crazy. I cannot wait till this blooms. I may just put 2 more lavender in this bed so that it just is a huge bed full of lavender. Right next door, this whole bed is maybe like 15 Hopi sunflowers, so I could use those for dye material. And these are my little tea plants, Camellia sinensis. They're not doing great right here. I'm not sure what they're missing fertilizer-wise or light-wise. They've got some new growth on them, but they still are stunted compared to what they should look like right now. But here's some new baby leaves. And next door to them, we have more marigolds, which I use for dyeing, and calendula, which I use for medicine and dyeing. And look, here's our first little baby calendula in there. And a stevia plant. Leaf always asks me to plant a stevia because he loves the sweetness. I put more scabiosa over here next to this rose, which is so close to blooming. All of my roses are so close to blooming. This rose is one that I got a couple years ago. It was called a mustard and ketchup rose because the flowers were yellow and red. But last year when it bloomed, everything was red, and I noticed it looks like it bloomed from the main stalk, and that whatever they had grafted onto it had died. So I don't know what the main rose was, but it does really well right here and looks and smells beautiful. So these tall things behind me are asparagus. For those of you who've never grown asparagus before, it's really cool. It puts out the asparagus stalks that you see in the store, right? These things right here. But if you are to let them go, they just get taller and taller, 6, 7, 8 feet sometimes, and they they look like ferns. They put out these really beautiful fronds, and some of them put out red berries in the fall. And so a couple of them have already just gotten too big, so I'm letting them go. But that's the asparagus bed right there. It did really poorly for a few years and had too many weeds, so I actually covered it up with black plastic last year, thinking I'm just gonna kill all the weeds back and then I'll replant. But the asparagus started popping through the plastic. So I cut holes around all of them to try and let them grow, and then this spring I just took the plastic up and I'm trying to encourage it to grow again. And then next door I've planted this whole bed with Dyer's coreopsis, so it'll be beautiful and orange and red flowers soon. The blueberries are looking great this year. We've had a bear coming onto the property and trying to get into the trash, so I'm hoping he does not notice this patch of blueberries because they look fantastic. Up on the hill, I've moved the strawberries from where, well, first there's the lupine. Isn't that gorgeous? There are a number of them planted here. This was another area that had a lot of vines and weeds that were hard to cut back, so I decided to go ahead and put the plastic down. And I've popped the lupine in holes, and then once they get big enough, once everything's nice and full like that, I'll take the plastic away. And then this whole section will be lupine, red and blue and purple. But just up here, I moved the strawberries. This is where I've had indigo the last few years, and it was perfect for planting the strawberries. I had to move them from where they were, which was where the new raised beds are. And you can see they're just starting to turn. Look at these. These are massive. Yay, strawberries. I put some beans back here. They're called cowpeas. So not beans, cowpeas. Yeah, so I'm going to put in a trellis and just let them grow up and over to the other side. And hopefully we'll be able to harvest some beans to dry for the winter. The elder patch, the new elder patch that I planted this past year, is doing fantastic. There's three different varieties of elder here, and I'm so excited. I even got to harvest them last year, the first year I planted it, and they just look amazing. There's lots of flowers on them this year, so there'll be lots of fruit, and I'll be able to make some elderflower cordial this year and dry some for the winter. And pick the berries for pie and dye and medicine. Speaking of medicine, I am getting ready to release my Herbal hot chocolate advent calendar. It's something that I've mentioned before and that I've been working on. It's a 24-day advent calendar, so you'll have one Herbal hot chocolate recipe. They're all completely different every day for 24 days, and I'm so excited about them. I started planning them this past year because I had purchased a tea calendar that came with some hot chocolate, and after I tried them, I was like, this is just like flavored water. Like, it didn't taste like much at all. I was like, I could do so much better than this, because I've made a number of Herbal hot chocolates before just for fun and because I love chocolate. So I started putting together recipes, and I would have everybody in the family try them, and there are recipes with spicy recipes and floral recipes and fruity recipes, and they're all really yummy. And so I put together an advent calendar that has 24 days of hot chocolates. All of them have some mix of herbs and spices in them, along with other fun things to open during the 24 days, like herbal chocolate body care products and stuff like that. There'll be chocolate recipes. I don't want to give away all the little surprises that are going to be in there, but they're going to be amazing. So I'm finishing up the listing for that this coming week, and hope to have it listed in my Etsy store on the 27th of May. So is that next Thursday? So keep your eyes out if you're interested. I'm also going to be at SAF, the Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair, this October, and I will probably have a few there, but you can also pick them up there if you're coming. I'm going to have a double booth there with all kinds of naturally dyed and eco-printed stuff and herbal stuff. So maybe I'll see you guys there. Okay, let's go to the back garden and see what's happening over there. So before we go to the back garden, I wanted to chat about my peach and my plum, and back behind is a nectarine, and all of these bush cherries and Nankin cherries. None of them have fruit on them this year. So it was a fairly mild late winter and early spring as far as temperature goes. So they bloomed fairly early, and then we had a couple of cold frosts, and they weren't really bad frosts like I was expecting many of these things to make it through. But a number of things were just at that perfect stage of starting to either put out flowers or put out greens and leaves that they got hit. My persimmon tree got hit twice. It had, green leaves maybe about this big starting to bud out, and they just turned black. My English walnut, same thing. And I think my lilac, which was putting out flowers, and all the flowers have just curled up and gone brown, but the rest of it looks great. So we don't have any fruit on our orchard trees or on many of our bushes. The blueberries are fine and the strawberries were fine, but at first I was sad, and then I'll admit, I got to thinking, well, I've got so many things growing in the raised beds right now and so many other projects, so many things on my plate that if not worrying about caring for the fruit on the fruit trees for 1 year is all I have to worry about, then that's fine. It's nice. It's actually a bit of a nice break, because caring for the peaches and the plums had been a big job, because they always get mildewy and powdery mildew and other diseases in the late summer because it's so humid here. And so they can just be for a year and grow and get strong, and I'll just give them love and fertilizer and stuff, and yeah, it actually took a little off my plate, so I'm fine with that. In the back garden, things are looking beautiful as well. This is like turning into my little fairy bed here. I just love it. I put one foxglove plant in here years ago, and now the whole thing is full and it's spreading throughout the garden. But there's also 2 different types of poppies. This beautiful orange poppy, and this one right here is another type of poppy. You can see the leaves are super different. Like, this is almost waxy, almost like a cabbage leaf, and that one is fuzzy and serrated. They're very different, but they're both poppies. So I'm excited to see what this one looks like, because I don't know what kind it is. This one is another red poppy, but different on the inside. It has these black streaks through the middle, and the center is white instead of purple like the other poppy. Isn't that gorgeous? They're just magical. It's like little fairies are dancing in the garden. I just love having them here. This is the main bed of milkweed that I did plant. I planted 2 varieties. This one is a pink flower, and these over here are the standard common milkweed, and they're growing into the roses over there. The roses are so close to blooming. It already smells like roses, even though they haven't popped open yet. You can see them right there. And the garlic is looking wonderful. This is the soft neck section right here, and then the hard neck over here. And I imagine they're going to start putting out some scapes soon. Yep. Here are some. So when they get a little bit bigger, I can chop those off, and I'll use those in stir fries like you would garlic. You can make pesto out of it, all kinds of stuff. But the hardneck variety puts out a flower, and if you don't cut it, the growing energy goes into the flower instead of the bulb. So you trim it off, and the energy to grow makes the bulb bigger as opposed to making the flower bigger. Here is one of my Indigo Beds. These are the ones that I raised from my seeds last year. I didn't harvest any for color last year. I actually harvested it all for tea. There were just too many other things going on, and with not holding classes last year, I didn't need as much for color. And so I made tea out of it. I've also got madder root planted on either side of this trellis so that can start growing and establish a madder bed here for a few years. This plant is one that I have recently discovered is a fantastic ecoprinter. I've always called it bloody dock. It's kind of a sour like lettuce green, and I think it's related to sorrel. But oh my gosh, the color that comes out of these stems, blues and purples, and so much of it. And when you break a leaf, well, here, I'll have some with my smoothie this morning, and I'll show you what happens. Can you see the color already coming out of that just from pulling the leaf? There's so much color in these. So I've been doing experiments with it to see how well it'll stay. I have 2 beds back here, one more indigo bed. And this is Leaf's Fennel bed. And it has 1 poppy in it, and I've not planted that, so I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm excited to see it bloom. But we have little baby fennel plants, and this is the variety that puts out a fennel bulb that you can cut up and eat as a vegetable. And Leaf is not much of a vegetable eater, so I asked him if he would try eating vegetables if they tasted like licorice or anise, because he loves that flavor. And he's like, yeah, sure. So we're growing a bed of fennel to see if he'll eat it. And that's today's garden tour, my friends. I hope you're doing well. I will get back to you with another podcast soon about all the crafting I've been doing. I know some of you have been asking about the things that I've been making for Kaya. Oh, she did decide she's going to be going to Mount Holyoke College, which is an absolutely amazing college up in Massachusetts. It's a women's college, and it was the first, I think, of what's called the 7 sister colleges, which were created to offer comparable education to women as the colleges like Harvard and Yale were offering to men at the time. I think it was 1838 that it was created, that it was started, and it's just an amazing college. It has fantastic programs, really supportive professors and faculty, and a lot of resources. So I think she's gonna really love it. The only downside is that it's 13 and a half hours of the drive away, or a flight and a drive. So she won't be coming home for the weekends, but she's going to be really, really loving the space and the support. She's going to thrive. I know she's going to love it. So we'll be moving her up there in August. And yeah, so I will get back to you on another podcast about other crafting things that I've been up to, and check in with you soon. I hope you all are doing well and having a good spring and staying healthy and happy and treating each other well and yourself well. Love you guys. Bye.